نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today is our 9th session on the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi. The first hadith that we'll be doing will be the hadith of Nasiha, Ad-Deenun Nasiha. Hadith on the foundation of the religion being based on advice. عن أبي رقية تميم بن أوس الداري رضي الله تعالى عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الدين النصيحة قلنا لمن قال لله ولكتابه ولرسوله ولأئمة المسلمين وعامتهم رواه مسلم. On the authority of Tamim ibn Aus ad-Dari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the religion is based on advice. We said to whom? He said to Allah, his book, his messenger, and to the leaders of the Muslims and their common folk. Sahih Muslim. Next slide. Hadith, the religion is based on advice. So what's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of Ad-Deenun Nasiha? Meaning the foundation of the religion is based on advice. The stepping stone to doing actions is through advice. Your action is based on your advice. So that advice paves the way for a person practicing. The word nasiha has a broader usage. It means to do an action or make a statement that benefits another person, or to show devotion of affection towards someone, or to intent of good for someone. So a nasih, giver of advice, is someone who is a well-wisher of the person he is advising and someone for whom he cares about. So that is on behalf of another person. Nasiha in the right of another person. So nasiha could also refer to oneself. You can also give nasiha to yourself. And in what way can you give nasiha to yourself? It's written, nasiha could also be given to oneself in the form of sincere repentance. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu tubu ila Allahi tawbatan nasuha. So that's a nasiha. You repenting from a sin is a nasiha. Performing good deeds that wipe out bad deeds, making the heart a place of contemplation and scrutiny, speaking the truth, utilizing one's limbs in practicing that which Allah has revealed from His book, the tradition of the Prophet ﷺ that has been reported, and preoccupying oneself in the remembrance of Allah and His praise and remaining firm and steadfast upon it. So you have two types of nasiha. One is giving nasiha which is given to another person, and the other one is giving nasiha to yourself. So both have been mentioned. Second slide. We said to whom? The Prophet ﷺ said to Allah, His book, His messenger, and to the leaders of the Muslims and their common folk. So I've categorized them, explaining them separately. So nasiha in the right of Allah means to believe in Him, to have the right belief regarding His oneness, to shun disbelief in His qualities, to have sincerity in His worship, to exert oneself in doing what He ordered and refraining from what He forbade, to acknowledge His favors and show gratitude to Him over those favors, and to befriend those who obey Him, and to show enmity to those who disobey Him. So this is what is required from us in the right of Allah. So this nasiha in reality is for the servant. Allah Ta'ala doesn't need any advice. He is free and independent from any advice. So that is indirectly a message to us. It's a wazifa on the ummah, on the servants of Allah. So this is the advice given to us regarding Allah, regarding the rights of Allah. What is required from us regarding the right of Allah. So this is the meaning. When they said to whom? Rasulullah said to Allah. Second slide, nasiha in the right of Allah's book means to believe in it, that it is the speech of Allah and His revelation, whose likeness no creation can present, to pronounce His letters at the time of recitation, to affirm to the promises and warnings therein, to ponder over its advices, to contemplate over its miraculous features, to act upon its muhkam verses, and to leave the matter of mutashabi verses to Allah. So nasiha in the right of the book, meaning the nasiha for us in the right of the books of Allah, the Quran and other scriptures, is that we believe that they are the books of Allah. We believe that the Quran is the book of Allah. Quran is the books, the heavenly books are the speech of Allah. Now, as for the Quran, no one can bring something like the Quran. No one can bring anything that resembles the Quran. Allah Ta'ala challenged the disbelievers in the Quran, in many verses of the Quran. They were not able to. Not even a surah, not even a verse, they were able to bring. Allah Ta'ala challenged everybody, whose likeness no creation can present, to pronounce his letters at the time of recitation. That is also one of the obligations of the Quran upon us, that we, reciting with tajweed, that's obligation. That, when you recite the Quran, you have to recite the Quran with tajweed. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam read the Quran with tajweed. Jibreel sallam, when he taught Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he taught with tajweed. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught his companions with tajweed. So he has a very strong foundation, strong basis in Islam. Reading with tajweed, it's not a new thing. It's not a new concept. It's been passed on. To affirm to the promises and warnings therein, okay, to believe in everything therein, to ponder over its advices, and to contemplate over its miraculous features, the layout of the Quran, the style of the Quran, the way, everything has been placed, we should ponder over them. To act upon its muhkam verses are the verses whose meaning is very clear, basically. So you believe in them, you act upon them, and the matter of the mutashabi verses, the meaning is not clear, the meaning is not known. So these you do not delve into, you leave it to Allah. Nasiha in the right of Allah's messenger means to believe in the prophecy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and that which he brought with him and he calls to us. Simple. To exert oneself in following what he orders and refraining from what he forbids. To prioritize him in love over oneself, one's children and everyone else. That's also one of the signs of Iman, loving Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam over everyone else. Giving priority to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam over everyone else. Next slide. Nasiha in the right of the leaders of the Muslim means to obey them on that which is the truth, not to oppose them nor go against them when they oppress. So this is one of the agreed upon matters, that whenever a Muslim ruler is oppressing people, you do not go against him. That's going to cause more fitna. There's a different way of approaching Muslim leaders. Allah gave the leaders such a high position. You cannot do things in a very awkward manner, in a very ruthless way. There are people of position, Allah giving them position. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Anzilun nasa manazilam." Give people the status. Even Allah Azza wa Jalla said to Musa alayhi salam to go to Firaun, and to advise him with politeness. So this is so this trait we should adopt when we give da'wah. So we should be able to adapt everything. You can't use one method of da'wah for everyone else. You have to keep on changing. You have to keep on adapting. So when the Muslim rulers, they are oppressive, they are doing wrong things, you do not go against them. You do not rebel against them. This is not the way to go about it. You're gonna cause more problems. There'll be more bloodshed, there'll be more killing. As you can see in the Muslim world, in the Middle East, there's bloodshed after bloodshed. It's all because of rebellion against the government. If the people acted upon this teaching of not opposing governments, not rebelling against them, then this bloodshed wouldn't have happened. Because of some group of people, the rebels, the civilians, they have to suffer. There's so much hikmah behind it. People don't understand. To approach them with softness and politeness, as I have said, to inform them of that which they are neglectful over, and that which has not reached to them regarding the rights of the believers. So, if you're a person of position, you have closer ties with the government, you should inform the government, you should inform the ruler of what he is neglectful over. And if there's any Muslims in need, any citizens in, you should inform him. You should remind him about them. To encourage and advise the believers to be obedient towards them, to pray behind them. Okay, this during the time of the Khilafah. So the people had to pray behind the Khalifa. They had to pray behind the Khalif. To participate in jihad with them, to hand over all charities towards them. So the sadaqat and everything is given to the Imam, and the Imam, he distributes to his people. To not over-exalt them with false praises, and to pray for their well-being and success. So there's no point, exaggerating in praising them, and, there's no need to do that. Rather, you pray for the success, for the well-being, that Allah Ta'ala guides them. Allah Ta'ala enables the leaders to, establish justice, to rule according to justice. So this is the proper way. So all these wazifa, nasiha is to us. The leadership in the hadith is referring to the Khulafa Rashidun and others who carried the responsibility of the affairs of the Muslims. The conclusion is that it is referring to those who are the successors of the Prophet ﷺ in establishing the deen in a way that to follow them is an obligation upon everyone. So in this basis, the great Imams of Islam are also included. You obey the Imams, you follow the teachings of the Imam, because they are also the successor of the Prophet ﷺ. They are the warasatul anbiya, the khulafa, the leaders of the time. They were in need of these Imams. Imam Abu Hanifa, so many times he was offered the post of judging, but he refused. Out of his taqwa, he refused, because he didn't want to take leadership. So many times his students took over. Imam Abu Yusuf Rahmatullah was the first. He was 𝐥𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐸𝐻, the greatest jurist in Islam. He was the greatest qazi. He was the greatest judge in the Islamic Caliphate, and all of the judges were under him. So one of the closest students of Imam Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf Rahmatullah, he took the responsibility, but Imam Abu Hanifa Rahmatullah didn't take the responsibility out of taqwa. The obligation upon the people is to, now what is the obligation of the people? What are the rights of the Imams upon us? The obligation upon the people is to accept that which they narrate. The Imams, the reliable scholars, when they narrate something, when they narrate a hadith, we accept it. Because Imams, when they use a hadith as evidence, that in itself is a sign that the hadith is sahih. You don't always need the grading of Imam Bukhari and Muslim and other Aimma. The Aimma Mujtahidun, meaning if any of the four great Imams, they regard a hadith as the evidence, that hadith, that's a sign that the hadith is sahih. Because you need to understand, the grading system is the ijtihadi thing. It's according to a scholar's research. Allah Ta'ala didn't say Sahih al-Bukhari is, Allah Ta'ala didn't say in the Quran, Bukhari is, all the hadiths in Bukhari are Sahih, all the hadiths in Muslim are Sahih. It's according to research. So why is Bukhari and Muslim the most authentic? Because according to the research of the scholars, is the most authentic book. So similarly, when the great Imams, one of the four Imams, they regard a hadith as evidence, that is that's evident that the hadith is sahih. So when they narrate something, accept it. To follow them in religious rulings, follow the the masails and everything that they have arranged, you follow them. And to have good opinion regarding all the Imams. You should always have husnul zan regarding the Imams. Just because if they have just because they made some of the errors, you don't criticize them. Who are you to criticize them? If they make a mistake, they are rewarded. If they are accurate in the decision, they are the reward is double. So who are you to judge? Next slide. Nasiha in the right of the common people means to guide them towards that which benefits them in their religion and worldly affairs. So this is a nasiha to everybody, how we should be to one another. Nasiha to the rulers as well, people of authority, how they should be towards the commoners, towards the citizens. So to guide them towards that which benefits them in their religious and worldly affairs, to keep them away from harm, to facilitate for them that what makes their livelihood more comfortable, to teach them that which benefits them in the deen and dunya, to teach them to cover the aura, that part of the body that is necessary to cover for men and women, to give them basic education, to respect their privacy, to advise them to do good and to refrain from evil with softness, to give them good advices, to tell them to abstain from backbiting, hatredness, to tell them to defend and protect their wealth and honor, and to respect their elders and to show affection to the youngest. So this is everything in a nutshell. The conclusion is to love for them what you love for yourself and to dislike for them what you would dislike for yourself. So this is one of the signs of Iman. That you love for your brothers what you would love for yourself, and you dislike for your brothers what you would dislike for yourself. That's the sign of a true well-wisher. So this is one of the requirements of a well-wisher. You love for someone what you would love for yourself, and you dislike for someone what you would dislike for yourself. Is there any questions before we move on to the next? Okay, next hadith. There are some lessons from this hadith. We'll just quickly do that. Nasiha. Good advice is an act that is a foundation for the religion. It's a stepping stone for those who want to be obedient towards Allah and His Messenger. So good advice should be accepted and followed. One of the ways of developing as a human is to be good around, to be around good and learned people. What this means is that once you are surrounded by these people, you learn by observing them and by taking the advices. The people who are self-centered, who ignore the advices of the people regarding it as pointless, will fail in life and never prosper. So big-headedness, arrogance doesn't help. If you want to develop as a human, you have to learn from people. You have to be humble. Yeah? With a full vessel, you're never going to learn. You go with the empty vessel. A person who advises others is a prime example of a true well-wisher. He only advises because he cares about the welfare of the person he's advising. The best of advisors are those who call people towards the path of Allah. That's the greatest thing a person can call somebody towards. The greatest of all the well-wishers are those who call people towards the path of Allah, who call people towards the oneness of Allah. The fikr, the concern that the prophets had and the companions had. Next hadith. Hadith on animal welfare rights. عن أبي يعلى شداد بن أوس رضي الله تعالى عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله كتب الإحسان على كل شيء فإذا قتلتم فأحسنوا القتل وإذا ذبحتم فأحسنوا الذبح وَلْيُحِدَّ أَحَدُكُمْ شَفْرَتَهُ وَلْيُرِحْ ذَبِيحَتَهُ. Rawahu Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, verily Allah has prescribed ihsan in all things. So if you kill, then kill well. And if you slaughter, then slaughter well. Let each one of you sharpen his blade and let him spare suffering to the animal he slaughters. Sahih Muslim. Now this is a very important hadith. This is a hadith dealing with animal welfare and also human rights. Regarding animal rights, Rasulullah ﷺ has stressed a lot. It's revolutionary. Nowadays you have these modern activist movements speaking of animal rights that existed 1400 years ago. Rasulullah ﷺ said, "Man qatala usfuran bighayri haqqi sa'alallahu anhu yawm al-qiyamah. Qila wa ma haqqu qala an tazbahu fa ta'kulhu. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is a Sahih Hadith in Sunan Darimi. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever kills a sparrow unjustly, meaning not with the intention of killing, just for fun, hunting, then in the Day of Judgment that person will be questioned. So when you kill an animal of consumption, you should eat the animal. You don't kill for fun. Hunting is not allowed in Islam. Hunting for fun. These rich people, these elite people, for them it's joy. The suffering of animals, nature is a joy for them. So many, even in this country, there's fox hunting still existing. The commoners don't do it. The laymen don't do it. The elites, the elite class, they kill foxes for fun. That's not allowed. They'll be sending their dogs to kill the fox for fun. Yeah, that's existing everywhere. People from the Western world, they go to countries that are naturally rich, nature-rich countries like Africa, etc., and they go on kill innocent animals. They hunt down lions. They take photo, post on media, get views. What is this? This is disgusting. This poor animal is also a citizen. The way there are Allah laid human rights, there's animal rights as well. Allah created them. Allah Ta'ala gave them habitat. They deserve to live, just as the way we deserve to live. So it's a great lesson from the Hadith that you can't kill for fun, for any, for bounties and rewards. This is existing in this day and age. These people are talking about animal rights. Why do they allow their citizens to go abroad, third world countries, and hunt animals illegally? These are hypocrites. There is another hadith, a different version of the hadith that I've just narrated in Sahih ibn Hibban, that if a usfur sparrow is killed, just for fun, without any reason, then the sparrow will complain to Allah on the Day of Judgment. That Ya Rabbi inna fulanan qatalani abatha wa lam yaqtulni manfa'a. That Ya Allah, this so and so killed me for fun and didn't kill me for benefit. I was not eaten, I was wasted. One of the famous stories of the past, Rasulullah narrated that a woman, an immoral woman, she once saw a dog panting out of thirst, and he was roaming around the well. Obviously the dog didn't have access to the well, so obviously she felt pity, so she went down the well and she drew out water with her socks and gave water to the dog. Because of this kind act, Allah Ta'ala forgave her. So this is the importance of animal rights. You should love all the creatures of Allah. You should love nature. On the other hand, there is also another hadith wherein, the famous story, a pious woman who was always engaged in the worship of Allah. She tortured a cat, whether it was her cat or someone else's. So, she tied up the cat and she let the cat starve to death. So Allah Ta'ala punished that woman. That's how seriously Allah Ta'ala takes. So we should be kind towards nature. A person who is nice to animals, he'll automatically be nice to humans. You see people who are vets or people who are working in this sector, in this with animals, they're very soft people. They're very nice people. So that's one of the best ways of training yourself, training yourself, making one of the ways of softening your heart is, be kind to animals. If you're kind to animals, you'll be kind to humans. Hadith. Verily Allah has prescribed ihsan in all things. Commentary. Meaning of ihsan is to do a good deed or to favor someone. Allah has prescribed upon His creation to do good and to do everything the way it should be done, to perfection. The religious ruling on ihsan differs according to the scenario. Sometimes ihsan is obligation, and sometimes ihsan is an optional act. The example of ihsan being an obligation is being nice to your parents, treating them well, people who have right over you, treating them well. This is the example of ihsan being an obligation. Giving charity is also ihsan, but it's not obligation, it is an optional act. Next slide. So if you kill, then kill well, and if you slaughter, then slaughter well. Let each one of you sharpen his blade and let him spare suffering to the animal he slaughters. So in here, the Prophet ﷺ uses two examples whose killing is legal. But we've been told to adopt, even in these scenarios, we should be adopting the best method that lessens the pain. So number one is when someone needs to be executed, a person who killed, everything has been justified, through evidence, so he is to be executed. Secondly, animal consumption being slaughtered. These two scenarios are when killing is legal and justified, but Allah has ordered adopting the quickest method of killing that will minimize the pain on the soul. So this is the focus. Okay, the person is being executed, is being justified, the animal is being killed for consumption, minimize the pain. One of the method of Rasulullah has also told us the method of lessening the pain, minimizing the pain. The tool that is used, whichever tool you're using, make sure it's sharp enough. So, it cuts quicker. And if it's blunt, if it's faulty, then it's going to increase the pain. It will increase the suffering. Ibn Hazm rahmatullah reported the consensus of the scholars of Islam on displaying ihsan when slaughtering an animal and when executing someone. So it's an obligation to adopt ihsan when it comes to executing someone, or when it comes to slaughtering the animal. So it's an ijma', a very strong evidence. Second slide. Etiquette of slaughtering the animal. To sharpen the knife should be tested before use to make sure it works properly at the time of slaughtering. Number one. Mullah Ali Qari rahmatullah said, it's mustahab to not sharpen the knife in front of the animal to be slaughtered. So the animal you're slaughtering, don't sharpen the knife in front of the animal, because animals, they have emotions. They can tell, if you're going to be sharpening the knife in front of the animal, the poor animal, he will be already half dead. Rasulullah once said to a person was sharpening the knife in front of the animal. He was about to slaughter. So Rasulullah said, you want to give the animal two deaths, the psychological death and the physical death. So so when it comes to the tool being used, that should not be sharpened or shown in front of the animal. So that is, again, animal welfare, caring about the welfare of the animals to such an extent that even caring about the psychological aspect of the animal, not just the physical, also the psychological. To not slaughter an animal in front of another animal which is to be slaughtered. That's another thing. So if you're slaughtering two animals, pair of animals, do not slaughter them in the presence of another animal. Again, not hurt, not making it psychologically challenging for them. The animals have emotions. People should know this. Those people living in the modern era, they should know. Animals, they have emotions, they can tell. The animal should not be dragged to the place of slaughtering, okay? As we see, they should not be dragged by their feet, and pulled, this is not good. Meaning the animal should not be taken to the slaughter place, meaning the animal should be taken to the slaughter place with calmness and gentleness. It is makruh to skin the animal or cut through its throat all the way till the nape, or decapitate it while it is still moving after slaughtering. So after you slaughter the animal is not motionless completely. The animal is still moving. So at that time, do not do any of these actions. Don't skin the animal while he's still moving. Do not cut through his throat all the way till the nape, or do not decapitate it whilst it's still moving. All that should be done after the animal is completely motionless. So in that way, you do not increase the pain. It is makruh to cut all the way till the neck area, or to completely cut off the head. So when you're slaughtering the animal, you should not cut it all the way till the nape, all the way till the neck, or to completely take off the head. That increases the pain. You only cut through the veins that need to be cut, and do not go beyond that, because you are increasing the pain. So a principle is, any procedure that increases the pain and is not needed is deemed as makruh. You should avoid any unnecessary method that causes pain, a person should avoid. Lessons from the Hadith. Display ihsan in every aspect of life. From this Hadith, we come to learn how much emphasis and importance is given to human rights and animal rights. The extent the Prophet ﷺ went to in upholding and promoting the rights of animal welfare is mind-boggling and revolutionary. The Prophet ﷺ was sent as a rahmah for the whole creation, who is a source of benefit for the entire creation. He was not just sent to the mankind, he was sent to the jinns and for the benefit of all the creation. So he was sent rahmatan lil alamin. Rasulullah ﷺ was sent as a mercy to the mankind, as a mercy to the creation. So many incidents during the life of Rasulullah ﷺ, where he showed compassion and mercy towards animals. He was a true animal activist. He was a true environmentalist who cared about the environment, who cared about the nature, who cared about the ecosystem. There are many hadiths from which we can learn that his implementation and teachings include stressing on human rights, rights of animals, and even rights of entities that are hidden from our eyes, like the angels and jinns. So there are many hadiths wherein Rasulullah even spoke about the rights of the angels and jinns. Like not going to the masjid, if you have eaten garlic because that will disturb the angels, that is talking about angels. Also, similarly, regarding the jinns, Rasulullah said, do not do istinja with bone and with dung, because that is the food of your brothers from the jinns. So you can see the extent of Rasulullah's compassion and affection and how thoughtful he was. He also cared about the environment and the ecosystem, as indicated in many of his statements. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Does anyone have any question before we move on to the next hadith? Next hadith. Hadith on the importance of modesty and shyness. عن أبي مسعود عقبة بن عمر الأنصاري البدري رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن مما أدرك الناس من كلام النبوة الأولى إذا لم تستح فاصنع ما شئت. رواه البخاري. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily from what was learned by the people from the speech of the earliest prophecy is, if you feel no shame, then do as you wish. Sahih al-Bukhari. Now, this is a hadith on the importance of haya, shyness and modesty. There's many, its importance could be learned from so many verses of the Quran and from the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In Surah Qasas, Allah Ta'ala mentions the story of Musa alayhi salam and whatever transpired between him and the daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَجَاءَتُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. Then one of the two women came to him walking with shyness. So when Musa alayhi salam favored them by carrying water for them, they went to the father Shu'aib alayhi salam. So Shu'aib alayhi salam, when he heard the incident from his daughters, he sent one of his daughters, go and bring him. I want to reward him. So when one of the sisters came, she came with shyness. The Mufassirun said she was covered and she was covering her face as well. So the chadar, the scarf she had, she was covering her face when she approached Musa alayhi salam. So this is shyness, Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. In another verse, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوت النبي إلا يؤذن لكم إلى طعام غير ناظرين إناه ولكن إذا دعيتم فادخلوا فإذا طعمتم فانتشروا ولا مستأنسين لحديث إن ذلكم كان يؤذي النبي فيستحيي منكم الله لا يستحيي من الحق. This is the incident regarding the walima of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Zainab bin Jahsh radiyallahu ta'ala anha. So he invited his guests, and after eating, they were not dispersing, they were engaged in talking. So obviously that caused discomfort to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he just got married, and if the guests are there, he will have to be entertaining them. So what happened was Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out of shyness, he couldn't tell them that leave. You know, this shyness is called istihya'u karam, the shyness out of, you know, love or compassion. You know, a lot of the times you want to say something to your guest, but you can't say it. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in this situation. Now, after eating, they were meant to disperse, but they didn't. They were engaged in talking. So Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, he didn't have the courage to tell. So that is another type of haya. Is reported regarding Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he was more shy than a virgin girl. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was so shy that he was even more shyer than a virgin girl. You know, virgin girls are very shy, especially in, you know, good countries, you know, countries where there's morals, you know. He was even more shyer than them. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu made a beautiful statement. He said, Man qalla haya'u qala war'uhu wa man qalla war'uhu mata qalbuhu. So he said, whoever's haya is less, deficient, his taqwa will be less. And whoever's taqwa is less, his heart is dead. His heart will be dead. Next slide. Verily, from what was learned by the people from the speech of the earliest prophecy is, if you feel no shame, then do as you wish. So what is the meaning of this? Meaning, all the previous prophets gave great importance to the concept of shyness and modesty. They all advised and encouraged the followers to adopt shyness and modesty. So this was from the old teachings, and which remained in its original form. There's so many laws that were abrogated, that were changed. But this is one of the concepts, one of the practices that were not changed, that was left untouched. Is one of the teachings that were not abrogated from the things that have been abrogated in the previous divine laws and remained intact ever since its introduction into previous sacred laws. So this is the meaning. Next slide. If you feel no shame, then do as you wish. What does that mean? The meaning is, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam either said it as a warning, that if you have no shame, then do as you wish, certainly Allah will punish you. You know, we say, you know, fathers say to the sons, you know, if you're not going to be, you know, doing if you're not going to be doing, if you're not going to be listening to me, if you're not going to be obedient towards me, then I will punish you, I will discipline you. So it's from that sense. That if you have no shame, then do as you wish, Allah Ta'ala will certainly punish you. The second is Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What he meant was, you should think before you do action. If it's not shameful, do it, and if it's shameful, then leave it out. So this is the meaning. These are the two meanings. Next slide. Discussion on haya. So we'll go into the discussion of haya. Meaning of haya. The word haya comes from the word hayat, which means life. So in the religious context, it is the source of life for the heart. So when there is no haya, there is no life in the heart. So haya is the trait of the heart which stops you from doing something bad, which stops you from doing something blameworthy, which stops you from doing something which is shameful. So, you know, if something is shameful, you wouldn't do it in public. You know, so that haya, you know, is from the heart. It's the action of the heart. Origin of haya. Haya is developed when the ta'zim of Allah is accompanied by the extreme love for Him, known as wudum muwadda. Now, the root of haya, when does the person achieve haya, is when his reverence for Allah and his love for Allah, what do you call it, is present. When these two things combine, make up haya. So when you have reverence of Allah and His love, you'll automatically have haya. Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullah said, haya is developed as a result of acknowledging the favors and blessings of Allah. So all these different explanations, they boil down to the same thing. If you have the ta'zim of Allah, if you have His love, you'll have haya. And that will stop you from disobeying him, that will stop you from committing any evil. Others have said is developed as a result of the realization of the heart that something should be avoided out of modesty and shyness. So from this realization, a state is developed, which is called haya. So you know that feeling or that tendency, this is known as haya. That tendency to not do something bad because of a feeling, that is known as haya. So there are numerous examples of haya. According to different scenarios, scholars have given different names to haya. For example, the haya'u jinaya, the haya of as a result of committing a sin. Like the case of Adam alayhi salam, when he committed the mistake, he was fleeing. And what did Allah Ta'ala say to him? Afiraran minni ya Adam, are you fleeing away from me? But what did Adam alayhi salatu wasalam say? Ya Rabbi, bal haya umminka. I only out of shyness and embarrassment I'm running away from you. So this is one type of haya. The second type of haya is haya'u taqsir. So this is the haya which is the haya of shortcoming. If you have a shortcoming, if you fell short in doing something, you have that haya. Like the angels of Allah, they're constantly engaged in the remembrance of Allah, but on the day of judgment, what would they say to Allah? We have not worshipped you the way you should be worshipped. So that's one type of haya. The other haya is the haya of ijlal. It's known as the haya ijlal or haya al-ma'rifa. Haya of realization. Okay, when you recognize that Allah Ta'ala is watching you, Allah Ta'ala is observing you, then that stops you from committing the sin. And that is the most powerful haya, the recognition of Allah, the realization of Allah. The moment a person has this in his mind, in his consciousness, he will not dare to commit any sin. The moment the heart becomes negligent and, diverts its attention from that thought that Allah is watching me, the person loses haya, that his heart will become dead. Allah Ta'ala is always aware. Allah Ta'ala is always present. He's always watching you. But your heart doesn't have that quality. Sometimes it drifts away, it shifts away, it diverts. So that's when what happens? The haya becomes less. And when the haya becomes less, and your heart is dead. So the haya of karam, the incident that I just mentioned regarding Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam in his walima with Zainab bin Jahsh radiallahu ta'ala anha. So that is haya of karam, haya out of kindness, you can say. The other haya is the haya of hishma, haya of relationship. Yeah. For example, Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu's case, when he felt shy to ask Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam a private question regarding the discharge of mazi. So the reason why he was shy from Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because he married Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam's daughter. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam was his father-in-law. So because of that position, he was shy to ask. So this is another type of haya. It's known as haya or hishma. The other haya is the haya'u istisghar. Haya'u istisgharin lin-nafs wa ihtiqarun laha. This is the haya where you belittle yourself. Haya, after belittling oneself, like the shyness of the servant while asking from Allah for his needs. This servant envelopes himself in the most humblest state and with very less regard for himself. So when a person is in desperate need, the way we ask from Allah, we are shy over whatever we ask. This is how much we belittle ourselves. The other haya is the haya of muhabbah, the haya out of love. So this is the haya the lover. This is the haya the lover has for his beloved. When the lover and the loved. So this is the scenario wherein, for example, if you love someone very much and you have been, what do you call it? You've been apart from each other for a period of time, and then when you suddenly meet them, there's that shyness. You're not that open. You don't run towards that person. There's that few seconds that of being in the state of you're stagnant basically. So there's that haya. So this is another type of haya, another type of shyness. Your loved ones, you see them suddenly, there's that shyness to approach them. Then after a few seconds, then you run towards them, you hug them, you ask about their welfare. So this is another type of haya. The other haya is the haya ubudiyya, the haya of servitude. That is made out of love and fear. So that is the one that we have for Allah. This haya is made out of the love of Allah and his fear. The other haya is the haya sharaf wa izza, the haya out of respect and honor. So when you're a person of stature, of status, and someone is asking from you. So when you give to that person, you have shyness. A lot of the times you wouldn't even dare to look at the person you're giving. And this is common. This does happen. So for example, this happens, when a relative is asking money from you. So you really want to help them, but at the same time you don't want to make them feel bad. You don't want to make them feel embarrassed. So you give to them, but you don't even dare to look at them. So this is also another type of shyness. Now, when it comes to haya, shyness, modesty, there are two types. One is natural and the other one is attained. So the natural one is which we are born with, which Allah Ta'ala has given to everyone, Muslim, non-Muslim alike. For example, little children, if you were to pull, what do you call it? If you were to uncover the body, they'll start crying. Now, where did they get that from? Where did that shyness come from? They have not been taught by the parents. This is very natural. So this is the shyness that Allah Ta'ala has given to everybody. And obviously, as we grow up and as we start to mingle with the society, all that goes away. The second haya, which is attained, you achieve it. You learn about the religion, about the what is allowed and what is not allowed. So you have haya. So the other one is achieved, which is not natural. So next slide. Just before we conclude our lesson, we'll go over the different types of haya, the ones that are praiseworthy and the ones that are not praiseworthy. Different types of haya that are praiseworthy. Haya from Allah, that is achieved as a result of the fear of Allah through pondering and contemplation and through obeying his commands and refraining from what he forbade. The servant feels shy from Allah that he sees him doing what he forbade. This type of haya is very effective in preventing a person from sinning and disobedience. Okay, so this is one type of haya that you have from Allah. And this is only achieved when you have reverence for Allah and when you have love for him. The second one is haya from the angels of Allah. So Allah Ta'ala has, every person has angels with them, and they never separate from us, except in, when we go to the toilet or when we're in the state of major impurity. So these are the only times they separate from us. Other than that, they don't. So having this in your consciousness, the angels are with me, how can I do this, bad, that? So that is also a type of haya. So we should respect their presence. They are honorable creation of Allah. Haya from the people, that's the common one. Obviously, you don't do something shameful in public, out of the fear, that people are gonna, label you, your reputation is gonna be dented, is gonna be damaged. So this is the haya that you have from people. You don't do something wrong because people are gonna watch you, out of the fear that people are gonna watch you, people are gonna know of you. Next slide. So we have done the shyness, which is praiseworthy. Now we're going to do the shyness that are not praiseworthy, which are detested. Shyness in seeking knowledge, like feeling shy to ask a question. Okay, so in seeking knowledge, you are shy. For example, you don't want to seek knowledge because you're going to be around so many people, and or you don't want to ask question feeling shy. So you shouldn't be. You're going to be losing out end of the day. So if you haven't understood something in a lesson and you're not asking a question, then you're losing out, because then that will remain that part of knowledge you're going to miss out on. That will not be solved. Whereas if you were to ask the teacher, he would have answered it, and you would have got your data, you would have got your information. And also by asking questions to the teachers, you're favoring others as well. So others also probably didn't understand, so you're favoring them, so you're educating them as well. So you ask questions. So when it comes to seeking knowledge, you should never ever be shy. When it comes to seeking knowledge, you should never ever be shy, and you should put yourself forward. You should show your interest. Then Allah Ta'ala accepts you. When Allah Ta'ala sees your eagerness, Allah Ta'ala will accept you. Allah Ta'ala will choose you for His religion. Second one, shyness in calling people towards the path of Allah, calling towards good and forbidding from evil. So again, when you're shy from telling people, if someone does something wrong and you're shy to tell that person, don't do this, this is wrong. No, this is the evil act. This is a responsibility. Wazifa of the Ummah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat, this verse. We have been chosen for the benefit of the mankind. One of the specialities of this Ummah is that every single individual is a da'i. You learn one verse, you give da'wah of that one verse. You learn one hadith, you give da'wah of that one hadith. So you shouldn't shy away. You are depriving the other person. If you guided him, you would have saved the person. But you are shy. So you should never ever be scared when it comes to telling someone to do something good and telling them not to do bad. And obviously in the right way, with hikmah. Shyness that leads a person in the disobedience of Allah, like out of peer pressure, and shyness to indulge in the evil acts your friends and near ones are indulging. So this is very common. This is a lot of the times you may be a good person, but because of peer pressure, because of the gathering you're in, what do? You just indulge in what they're indulging in. So for example, in weddings, women are dancing and everything, and they tell you you're also there, so you feel left out, so they're pulling you and you just indulge in it. So you should be strong, you should confront. There's so many other examples as well, being with friends, they're smoking, so just for you to not feel left out smoking. So all these type of shyness are condemned, are detested. Similarly, leaving out salah because guests came to your house. People, it's one of the, when guests come to your house, you're very busy, and especially the guests, so just to keep them entertained, you're not praying your salah, you're missing your salah. But that should never happen. You should be a form of da'wah example for them. When you start praying, even if they don't pray, out of shyness, they're going to pray, because they're in a situation, you put them on the spot, they're going to pray with you. So that's a great lesson. Another one, which is not very common, but I did meet some people, some individuals who have that type of shyness. So what the scenario is, the person doesn't want to do a good act because the person feels that other people are seeing him and he may have riyah. Yeah. So the scenario is he doesn't want to do a good act, having in mind that other people will see me and I'm going to have riyah in me. So when I went to Turkey, in our hotel, there was a receptionist, and he was a very good person. He obviously is a Muslim. He would talk about the deen and the history of Islam, but he never used to pray namaz. So I approached him and say, do you pray namaz and everything? And so the answer he gave me was, the only reason why I don't pray namaz is because I feel like people see me. And when they see me, I do not have sincerity. I have riyah in me. That I'm praying for show off. So it's a rare case, does happen, but a person should avoid. It's a deception from shaitan. So so many times shaitan can, through good, he can deviate. He can mislead you. Through a good act, he can mislead you. The haya in itself is such a good thing, but he's gonna present that, he's gonna make it appealing, and he's gonna mislead you. So he's gonna make you use it the wrong way. Yeah, like the example I just used. Fuzail bin Ayad Rahmudullah made such a beautiful statement. He said, Tarkul amal li ajali nas riya'un. So to leave a good action for the sake of the people is also a riyah. So either way, you pray salah, and all these thoughts come into your head regarding riyah, you just ignore and you continue with your salah. Comes in a hadith, إِذَا جَاءَكَ الشَّيْطَانُ وَأَنْتَ تُصَلِّي فَقَالَ إِنَّكَ مُرَاءٌ فَزِدْهَا طُولًا. So the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that when shaitan comes to you while you're in prayer, and shaitan whispers in your ear that you are showing off, continue with the salah, lengthen the salah. You combat the shaitan with that which will drive it away. So do the opposite of what shaitan is telling you. Shaitan is saying, show off, you're showing off, leave your salah. Don't leave salah, continue with your salah. So this is the way to combat these evils. Shaitan tells you something, you do the opposite. The nafs tells you something to do evil, you do the opposite. So Fuzail bin Ayad Rahmatullah said that to leave a good action because of the people, is also a riyah. وَالْعَمَلُ لِأَجْلِهِمْ شِرْكٌ. And to do dedicating action towards the people is shirk or asghar. So may Allah give us the tawfiq. We'll be concluding our lesson here, inshallah. If anyone has any questions, you can ask. So we completed all the 3 hadiths, alhamdulillah. So, and the hadith on haya is also finished, inshallah. We'll continue, we'll resume.